Hey, folks, if you've ever looked at your bank statement and thought, where'd all my money go? You're not alone. I recently came across a post on Reddit from a 31-year-old professional, and they finally did what most of us avoid doing. She tracked her spending for 4 months, and what she discovered shocked her. She was spending $1,500 a month on food. And that's not because she was dining at fancy restaurants every night, but because she's fallen into what I like to call the convenience trap. And that's DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, those types of things. Almost every single day she was doing that. When she did the math, she realized she spent over $40,000 in just 4.5 years on something that could have cost a fraction of that. Now, here's why this matters to you. According to recent data, the average American household, they spend $1,546 a month on all food. That's groceries and restaurants combined. If you're spending close to that amount on delivery apps and restaurants alone, you're leaving serious money on the table. And we're not just talking about a few $100s here. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, potentially hundreds of thousands, when you factor in what that money could have done if you had invested it instead. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how this happens to intelligent, hardworking people and why it's so easy to fall into that trap. And most importantly, a compassionate step-by-step roadmap to fix it without punishing yourself or living on ramen noodles. I'm Mike Dunlop, certified financial planner and co-founder of Ignite Financial. And over the years, I've helped countless folks navigate that transition from overspending to financial freedom. So let's dive right in. Let's start with something important. If this is you, you're not lazy, you're not irresponsible, and you're not alone. Research and behavioral psychology, it tells us that delivery app spending is actually designed to be addictive. A cross-sectional study they did of 439 young people, it found online shopping addiction for food delivery apps. It can significantly predict your unhealthy spending habits. And that's driven by something they call flow states, that intense immersion where you just lose track of time and money. So here's what's happening in your brain. When you open DoorDash or Uber Eats, your brain, it lights up like it does with behavioral addictions like gambling. These apps, they're designed with those algorithmic rewards, personalized recommendations, and honestly, frictionless one-click ordering. Studies have shown that as mobile app usage becomes more habitual, it's more likely to result in that addictive behavior. But there's a bigger picture here. Young professionals earning $50,000 to $100,000 a year, they're particularly vulnerable to what's called lifestyle inflation. You get a raise, you start making good money, and suddenly the $15 delivery fee doesn't seem like a big deal. You deserve it, right? You worked hard. The problem is these small conveniences compound. One $30 order becomes 5 orders a week. 5 orders becomes $600 a month. And before you know it, you're spending 30% of your take-home pay on food, which is exactly what happened to the woman in that Reddit post. The normalization of convenience spending, it's exploded post-pandemic. We've gotten used to having everything delivered. We got used to the apps, and now it's become the default rather than the exception. But here's what most people don't realize. That convenience, it's expensive. The average person who cooks at home, they spend around $940 a month on groceries. Compare that to the $1,500 a month on delivery in restaurants. That's $560 every single month we're experiencing. Let's talk about opportunity cost. That's a financial planning term that simply means, what are you giving up by spending money on one thing instead of saving or investing it? Let's use the numbers from that Reddit post from that woman. She's spending about $1,000 to $1,100 a month more than she needed to on food. Let's be conservative and say $1,000 a month in excess spending for this example. Over 4.5 years, that's $54,000 just gone. Now, she mentioned she'd wasted over $40,000, which aligns with this calculation. But here's where it gets really eye-opening. Let's say that instead of spending that $1,000 a month on the delivery apps, she invested it using standard compound interest calculations with a very conservative 7% annual return, which is a historical average of the market adjusted for inflation. Here's what actually happens. Over 5 years, that $60,000 in contributions, well, it's going to grow to about $70,500. You've gained $10,500 just from the growth. Over 20 years, that same $1,000 a month becomes $524,000, over $500,000. You've contributed $240,000, but you've gained $284,000 in compound interest. Over 30 years, you're looking at over $1 million. You only contributed $360,000, but that compound interest gave you $860,000 in growth. That DoorDash order that you're about to place, it's not just $30. It's $30 that could become $60, $100, or more over time. Every delivery fee, every convenience charge, every tip, it's all money that can be working for you instead of disappearing. So now, let's talk about some solutions, because here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to punish yourself. I don't want you to go to the extreme like the Reddit post initially did, locking her credit card, saying she didn't want to buy food for 3 months. That's not sustainable, and it's really not healthy. So what works is creating a realistic food spending plan that balances that convenience with the control. And here's how we do that. So based on what the USDA says, a single adult eating at home, they should budget about $270 a month for a thrifty food plan, or maybe $500 for a more moderate plan. For someone that earns $60K a year, or about $5,000 a month take home, food should really be about 10 or 15% of your income. That means $500 to $750 a month total for all food, and that's groceries and the occasional dining out. So if you're currently spending $1,500 and your goal is to bring that down to $750 or less, that's a 50% reduction. And that sounds massive, but it's actually very, very doable. And this is where the magic happens. Batch cooking, it's been proven to save $25 to $50 a month just by planning around what you already have and buying ingredients in bulk. Here are some specific techniques that we like to use. Designate one batch cooking session a week, and on that day, spend 2 or 3 hours, maybe it's a Sunday, preparing proteins. That could be your chicken, your ground beef, turkey, your hard-boiled eggs. Prepare your grains and your vegetables, and then portion those into containers. And that gives you grab-and-go style meals for the week, so you don't have to grab that DoorDash app when you're hungry. Double or triple recipes when you make something. Say you're making chili. Make 3 times the amount. 1 batch for that dinner, 1 batch for lunches, and maybe 1 batch for the freezer. Cooking twice the amount, it really doesn't double the time, but it saves hours over multiple cooking sessions, and that adds up over time. Next is strategic grocery shopping. Before you go to the store, look in your fridge, look in your freezer, your pantry. Build your meal plan around what you already have. Buy those bulk items when they're on sale. Dry beans, they cost a fraction of canned, and they're perfect for batch cooking. And they get prepared really easy in the Instant Pot anymore, and everybody has one of those. The next step, it's budgeting for those occasional restaurant meals where you go out or have food brought in. Here's the thing. You don't really have to eliminate those restaurants entirely. In fact, I'd almost argue that you shouldn't, but what you do need to do is make it intentional instead of habitual. Maybe budget for 2 to 4 restaurant meals a month. Times when you're celebrating or when you're with your friends or when you generally just want that experience of going out. And that might be, $100 or $200 a month. The key is just to plan for it, not default to it every time you're tired and don't feel like cooking. That just sets you up for failure. So that was a couple examples, but knowing what to do is one thing. Actually doing it, that's a whole different thing. And let's talk about the whole behavioral strategies that have been proven to work. We need discipline here, right? So the first strategy that I want to recommend is just get rid of those apps, the Uber Eats and the DoorDash off your phone. And this is based on habit research. We talked about it earlier. Studies have shown that as mobile app usage becomes more habitual, it leads to those automatic responses that just increase that addiction risk. And the solution, just get rid of them off your phone. Not just log out, actually delete them. Make it harder to order. If you have to re-download the app and log back in and enter your payment information every time, you're adding friction. And that friction gives you that time to think, do I really need this or am I just bored? And maybe it'll trigger thinking about what those opportunity costs are. Cognitive behavioral therapy studies have shown that disrupting those automatic cues, like the app icon on your phone, that significantly reduces that compulsive behavior that we have. The next thing, after we delete those apps is just go ahead and automate your savings. We recommend this to every person for savings. And this is where behavioral economics kicks in. Research by Thaler and Benzardi, they had a study called Save More Tomorrow. And that study found that people save 3 to 13 times more when your savings are automated versus manually saving when I have money. And so here's what you do. Go ahead and set up automatic transfers from your checking account to a high-yield savings account the day after you get paid. And if you were spending $1,500 on food and you bring that down to $750, automate that $500 difference into savings. You're not even going to miss what you don't see. Here's the next thing. If your employer offers a 401k or a Roth 401k, increase your contribution by 1 to 2% per paycheck. For someone earning $60K a year, contributing 10 to 15%, that should be the goal. Also, if you have an auto escalation where that's every year you can increase your amount by 1 to 2%, you should use that. It really will help. The next strategy, use cash envelopes or separate debit cards. So we've done this in our household in the past, and it's called the cash envelope system. And it works because it creates a real tangible limit. The Journal of Consumer Research, it found that people using cash for discretionary categories like groceries, they reduced their spending by 10 to 20% just due to the tactile constraint of physically handing over money to people. It feels different than just swiping your car. It hurts more, and then you'll spend less. So here's how to implement a cash envelope system. Take $500 or $600 in cash at the beginning of the month and divide that into envelopes. Maybe $300 for groceries, $150 for dining out, and $50 for those expensive treats. When that envelope's empty, you're done for the month. And if cash feels unsafe or impractical to you, that's fine. Just use a separate debit card with only your food budget loaded onto it. But the key is, when it's done, it's done. The next strategy is build some sort of a accountability system. Group cognitive behavioral therapy, it's been shown to effectively reduce shopping addiction, with guided self-help also achieving positive results in reducing your spending. Find somebody that's an accountability partner. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or even your online community, which is so popular anymore. Share your goals and check in weekly and be honest and celebrate those small wins that you have. The next thing we want to look at is reframing from shame to becoming an empowered person. And here's what I want you to hear. The fact that you're even watching this video and you've watched it for this long, the fact that you've tracked your spending and discovered that maybe it's a problem, that truly is the hardest part. Most people don't even ever do that. Most people live in denial that there's a problem. So this woman from Reddit, her post felt ashamed. She felt angry at herself. She felt like she'd failed. But in reality, here's the truth. The awareness, that's the breakthrough. You can't fix what you don't measure. Now that you know, you have the power that you need to change. And this isn't about punishment or being shamed. It's not about never ordering takeout again or eating rice and beans for the next year. It's It's about building that sustainable, healthy relationship with money. And it's about recognizing that your future self, the one who wants to retire comfortably or travel or buy a home or simply just have peace of mind, that person deserves better than fleeting convenience. So you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a point of awareness. And really, that's everything we need to start. So what does creating this sustainable path forward look like? Let's put it all together into a simple, actionable plan. Maybe week 1, we continue to look at the awareness and the cleanup. And that involves tracking every dollar you spend on food for 1 week. Use an app like Monarch Money or a simple spreadsheet or carry a notebook. The second thing, delete those delivery apps off your phone. Take inventory of what's in your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer and start thinking about what to make. I love to use ChatGPT, plug the ingredients in and tell me what can I make. That works awesome. We get through that first week, then we look at weeks 2 to 4. Let's build a new habit. Plan your meals for the week. Again, use the ChatGPT, based on what you already have. Designate 1 day each week for batch cooking and just make 2 to 3 meals in bulk. Set up that automatic savings that we talked about, that $200 to $500 a month, whatever we decide we're going to cut down on. And then maybe allow yourself 1 planned restaurant meal per week. We'll start with 1 per week and see how that goes. The 2 to 4 weeks, we get through that. Then we're looking at months 2 and 3. We're going to refine this plan and adjust this plan. Track your progress. Are you hitting that food budget? Maybe we set $750 a month. Are you hitting that? Celebrate a win. Did you cook at home 4 nights this week? That's awesome. That's huge. If you slip up, that's okay. Have some grace. Don't spiral. Get back on track the next day. As we get through the 4th month, you're really starting to develop those habits. And as they solidify, redirect those additional savings into the investments we talked about. Your Roth IRA, your 401k, or open up a taxable brokerage account. For someone earning $60,000 a year, maxing out a Roth IRA is huge, and it's a game changer. Over 30 years at 7% returns, it could become $750,000 of tax-free money. The other thing is, once we get these habits in place, reassess them every 3 to 6 months. Maybe you need a tweak here or a tweak there. Yes, this plan is fluid. It can be changed. Folks, I know this isn't easy. Changing habits never is. It's hard. But here's what I've seen and time again working with clients. Once you get control of that spending, once you see that first $1,000 in savings hit, once you realize that you're not sacrificing your happiness, you're actually gaining it, everything changes. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be intentional. At Ignite Financial, we specialize in helping people just like you, folks who've worked hard to save. They're diligent about it, and they want to make sure that their money lasts. If you're within 5 to 10 years of retirement, or if you're ready to get serious about building that wealth, we'd love to talk. Visit our website to book a free intro meeting. We'll walk you through your situation, answer your questions, and help you build a plan that aligns with your values. Don't just retire. Ignite your retirement.